Welcome to the Western North London podcast, where we sit down each and every week to answer your big Arsenal questions. I'm Caleb.
And I'm Tim.
Tim, it's a bittersweet week because it's somehow the last week of the season. I don't know how that snuck up on me, but here we are.
The games come by fast, things go by quickly. It's amazing how I remember starting the season with such optimism.
It wasn't all that long ago, right?
Yeah.
I I think I had it in my head that we had like 2 more weeks. I didn't realize I of course never pay that close attention to the schedule until like the week of, and of course it's two games this week, so that really threw me off.
Yeah, I mean, like I pay attention to like the upcoming matches as far as who we're playing, but as
Hmm.
far as where they fit into the calendar, I very rarely go like, "Oh, that's gonna be a Wednesday game, and that's gonna be a Saturday game," and like
Right.
2 months from now, I'm gonna have two games in a week. Like it just is like, what's up next? Like what's the next on that? You know?
Yeah, yeah, we're really good at planning around here.
Oh yeah.
Staying on top of these things. Well, what sort of drink do you have in hand this week?
I didn't
In a
do anything
koozie.
fancy. I did
Ah,
a vitamin R, a good Rainier today, just because I've been camping and I didn't really have time to go to the store. And I always have this. Actually, this is one of the Rainiers that made it with me to the campsite. So I made it
nice.
back, and yeah, I like Rainier. It's good. It's easy. It's simple. It's cheap.
Awesome. Good choice.
How about you?
I was given a beer over the
Mm.
weekend, and I haven't even opened it yet, but I will show it to the camera before I do here. It is a Laurelwood Brewing Company out of Portland, Oregon. Sunshine Days
Oh,
Hazy
nice.
IPA. I don't know if I
That's
can.
nice.
There we go.
Yeah.
It's got a little camper van on it with a bike on top. It looks very summery and camp worthy.
That was literally what I was doing last week or last
Let's see.
weekend.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a hazy IPA, but very drinkable, and 6.5% of not bad.
Yeah, I've actually been to that brewery. It was several years ago, and I remember they had this really good. I forget the name of the fruit, but it was this type of citrus fruit that's from Asia that I've never heard of before. But it was really good in the beer. It was like a light summery beer. I was
Huh.
there in the summer, and then it had like a nice citrusy that wasn't orange, wasn't lemon, like type of flavor to it. Yeah, I like their brewery. I like their beer,
Nice.
despite being from Portland.
Yeah, despite all those shortcomings. um,
Just kidding.
just kidding, guys. So let's get into what has happened. Oh wait, excuse me, excuse me.
Oh,
Oh,
you
I
almost forgot something
I
important.
oh man. Oh, so Tim's bit, can't forget that. My goodness, what is wrong with me?
I know. Well, I mean, this one's extremely important, which is my question for the day is hair. Who does it better? David Luiz, Guendouzi, or El Neni?
Oh, you're not gonna throw Willian in on that? He's got a decent head of hair.
Yeah, I mean,
Aubameyang, we've
I will
got
take none of the above as an answer as
okay,
well.
okay. But of these three,
Yeah.
oh man, that is tough. I should have pulled up the side by side. I'm not a big fan of Gendouzi's when compared to Louise. I feel like Louise has a more of a look.
Yeah, like doesn't it feel like Guendouzi's just like is a little bit more like it has some oil in it or something and
It,
it like
it,
drags
it
it
droops a
down a little?
bit.
Yeah.
It's like Sideshow Bob had a bad hair day, and
Yeah.
it just kind of fell down. Whereas Louise, he nails it. I think I'm going with him. El Neni's not in the conversation as far as I'm concerned.
All right. So you're not going for like a little bit more, I don't know, manicured look that
No, I think it's
no.
all Louise all the
Yeah,
time.
like going peak sideshow Bob.
Yes. And I don't want to say Sideshow Bob as an insulting thing. I think I think he wears it well. I wouldn't even
Yeah.
consider that a dig towards Louise in any way. It's just the closest comparison I have to, you know, explain what his hair is, even though it's less than flattering, I'm sure.
Nah, I mean, I think I would take it as a compliment if someone said I was sideshow Bob esque.
Like, you're a little murdery. Um,
Yeah.
your personality scares people.
Well, I'm trying to remember. Does sideshow Bob actually murder anyone, or does he just try to murder someone?
That's a good question. I am not a Simpsons expert as far as everything Sideshow Bob has ever done. I cannot recall, but he definitely
Yeah, I mean, I'm
plots.
pretty
He
sure
schemes.
he plots, but there is a very distinct difference between actually murdering someone and just plotting to murder somebody.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it all the time is very different. It's just the potential to murder,
Yeah.
but he can't be arrested for
Well,
that.
well, I guess attempted murder you can be arrested for though. So,
But
and I know he.
it's like a thought crime until you actually do something.
Yeah, but there. I mean, I am not a lawyer. Maybe we please write in about this. But there is a point where, like, if you buy like knives with the intent to murder, there is a point where
I know
it
this is
does
this
break
is
some sort
not
of law.
his specialty, but Dave does watch this and listen to us once in a while. So hi Dave, if you're listening, write in and tell us what, give us some legal advice here.
Yeah, like I hear true crime like podcasts are pretty popular, so maybe this is our foray into like the true crime genre.
We started with Sideshow Bob and then went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, the Arsenal Murder Cast.
There's probably an audience for that.
Yeah, I don't know very many crimes that happen about Arsenal other
No.
than maybe this season.
Haha.
Zing.
All right. Well, with that, let's get to the the crime of the century, the steal that was the Chelsea game.
That was a nice transition.
Yeah, so that was uh, a gut check. That was one of those ones I was kind of on the edge of my seat for far too long in that game because that it was a bit nerve wracking once we scored the one and only goal in the game. It was hang on tight and get through this thing for a good chunk of it.
Yeah, I had two kind of feelings about this game, like overall, before we get into the specifics. Which is the first, there's something really nice and fun about watching a game where you're not worried about like the overall implications of the world. You can
Sure.
just take this game as a one-off game, a
Mm-hmm.
game against Chelsea, a rival. You don't have to worry about what this means for Champions League. What does it mean for this and that? It's just we are playing a team and we want to beat the team. And there's just something fun about watching a game in that. And then the other thing I was thinking about, and this was more after the game was over, about how if this result was in a different season where we were, in Champions League spots, I would not be complaining about this 1-0 win at all. And to see some of the people react to this game I think it's more or less Arsenal fans than like how the media reacted to this game is like, Arsenal got off lucky, da da da.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if the context were different in this game, I think people would be talking about it in a much different light, you know?
Yeah, I fit. Yeah, being where we're at in this season and Chelsea's kind of on the ascendancy with the way their season is ending, and I think everybody has written Arsenal off and pretty much said, this is a team that has failed this year, and so those narratives followed these teams into this game. So I think this was more of a shocker than it might have been otherwise, um, because this was the second win in the series for Arsenal, and so the reality is Chelsea did not stack up well against our team somehow this year, and that's pretty rare on its own, but. Um, to have it happen this season when, like I said, I think that under Tuchel, I think that Chelsea has looked pretty pretty solid. So this was a surprise, I think, to most pundits and most fans. I don't think I was um, even through the rest of this game. I mean, like the 80 something minutes, or we scored in the 16th minute. So I mean, there was a long time in this
Yeah.
game I was like, I don't think we got this. I really, any minute they're going to score, because there was shots, let's see, total shots 19-5. I mean, we were getting shelled, and yet
Yeah.
the defense found a way to hold on for 90 minutes, and that's pretty outstanding considering the team we were up against.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was a great defensive performance, and stuff. It really didn't feel like a great defensive performance. Like you say we got shelled, and we were really getting shelled, especially as the game kind of ticked on and the pressure mounted.
Mm-hmm.
And the ball did hit the back of the net. I mean, Pulisic was like miles offside,
Yeah.
so it didn't matter. But the ball did hit the back of the net. They hit the post several times. Giroud hit the post. Mount had a ball that was saved by Leno.
Yep.
So I hesitate to say it was a good defensive performance, but at the end of the day, we did shut out one of the top teams in the league. So
Yeah.
I'll take it.
It's pretty unbelievable. But I mean, um the error by Jorginho was pretty egregious. He basically passed it back into an open goal. um, I I couldn't tell you what he saw, but I've seen our players do very similar things, so it does happen. Just maybe not to him.
Would you prefer him to have scored the own goal, or do you
Oh,
like the fact that it was a save and then Smith Rowe put it in?
I definitely would have relished that if that would have just gone in, because that was pretty bad. That would have been pretty bad. He was miles away, yet somehow
Yeah,
was still able to come back and make a save. I, I my tip of my cap to, was it Kepa that was their goalkeeper that day? Uh,
I believe it was
yeah,
Kepa. Yeah.
Kepa that day. Um, so good on him for making the save. Unfortunately, we had to, the cavalry was there, so Aubameyang was pretty cool and collected to get that ball into position where he could cut it back to Emil Smith Rowe. Really,
Well, and I like the fact that Aubameyang didn't even try to go for himself; that he did play playmaker and set up Smith Rowe. I think that's a sign of a mature player, and I do appreciate that.
yeah, because we've seen him miss some goals like that. Not that, maybe not that situation, but we've seen him miss some sitters this season. So I appreciate that he went for the more um, sure bet, I guess, in Emil Smith Rowe. Although, hey, the ball did get caught up in his feet a little bit, and so that he still, I think he hit it off the inside of the post. Even still,
Yeah, it was a pretty close run thing at the end of the
yeah,
day, but it went in.
yeah, it will take him however we can get him. So good for Aubameyang on the assist, and great that Emil Smith Rowe could score a second goal in as many games. And um, you don't expect to score those kind of goals, but he had his um, head on his shoulders. He could have messed it up and, and panicked under pressure, but he found a way to get it in. So uh, hopefully that's a confidence builder. You hate to, well, no, I think anytime you can get on a scoring run is good. I just say thinking, man, I wish this would have happened like maybe a little bit earlier in the season instead of like the last 3 or 4 games. But that's all right. We'll take it. That's confidence he
Yeah,
can build on next
it's
year.
just, exactly, it's building to next year, right? That's what we're the mode we're in right now is building to next year, and you could also talk a little bit about the fact that Chelsea probably did not have all eyes on this game. They had the FA Cup final
Yes.
coming up very quickly, and they just had come off their Champions League win. So they probably have much bigger fish to fry than Arsenal. But that being said, it wasn't like it was a full rotational squad. They put together a pretty pretty A squad. There was like what's his name in the midfield there, the young kid, the 19-year-old that they started that I wasn't super familiar with.
Oh, in the midfield. What is that kid's name?
I should be
Gilmore?
responsible.
Billy Gilmore?
Yes, yeah. So they had him, but other than that, it was pretty much an A squad. They had Havertz starting up top, which I think he is doing much better than other players going up top. Although the romantic in me probably would have started Giroud if I were them from the go, but he's kind of just been super sub. So
Yeah. Gosh, and him coming in and hitting one off the post, nerve wracking for sure.
mm. Yeah, it's nice that he's doing that for Chelsea instead of us nowadays. But
uh, Unfortunate.
yeah.
Well, I don't have much more to say on that game. There wasn't too much else to call out other than good to get a win, however we get them.
Uh, just one other quick question, not to blow over it too quickly. Is how do you think Odegaard did? He got a start.
He's been fine.
Could you say much more than he got a start?
Yeah, he's been fine. I feel like he's been off his rhythm a bit since coming back from injury, but he he, I, he performs well, and I didn't really have anything that was like outstanding, but he wasn't bad either. He's did what he had to do.
Yeah, and I think that's how I kind of would rate the whole Arsenal team for the most part. Was out of tens, I think I'd give all the team a 5, except for probably Marie, who gets a like 3.5, 4, just for that really bad
Uh
back
huh.
pass. But the most of the team was nothing to write home about, nothing to really complain about. It was, I mean, as I said, if this game happened earlier in the year when we were in contention for a lot more stuff, I'd be much more excited about it. But coming kind of in this context, I'm a little bit like, okay, we got three
Right.
points. It might put a little bit of shine on this the end of the season, but
Yeah. Knock. I can't knock the win, but it wasn't. I wasn't ecstatic over it. We'll say that.
yeah, I mean, usually beating Chelsea, I get this like extremely warm fuzzy, and I don't know if it's just because I did watch the Champions League or semifinals and seeing the joy that Chelsea got to feel and feeling a little bit jealous, and then like knowing that coming in here we're just not on their radar. Maybe that took a little bit of the shine off of the win.
Yeah, it's hard not to be in the conversation at this point. Not to really have anything to play for. At least last season we had the FA Cup final to um, hang our hats on, and now it's not even. Yeah, it's pretty depressing at this point.
Yeah, because I mean we just don't have any. I mean, there's a little bit of context, which I think we'll get to a bit later, but there's not much really to like try and say we're working for these games. They kind of feel just like dead rubbers. They feel like those games at the end of the World Cup group stage where it doesn't really matter what happens and play teams are not playing full strength teams and there's just not much to talk
Right.
about.
Well, that's three wins in a row from Arsenal, so they're doing everything they can. I mean, it's not like there's nothing to play for. There's long shots, so whatever they can do to win the rest of the season is all they can do. Now it's up to teams in front of them to mess up, and I don't know. We'll talk a bit more about that probably later in the show, but
Yeah, I mean, I think my new adjusted goal is to finish ahead of Tottenham, which it's funny. It felt like so miles away several months ago, but now we're only 4 points off that goal, and I think that's an achievable goal. 4 points more than Tottenham over the last couple games. I
it's
think it's doable.
possible. Yeah, I'd like that. I'm upset that Leeds jumped in front of us,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
we still got time.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Again, these are the short term goals that we
Uh
can go
huh.
after.
Well, I'm just looking at what Leeds has left this season. Oh, they just have West Brom. Okay, well, there's that.
One last hurrah for
Yeah.
West Brom. Oh god, like they can't even close out the game. You saw the header from Allison, right?
Yes. They can't catch a break.
Uh,
And goalkeepers are scoring on them.
nah. Although to be fair, that header was like a legitimate header. I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, well, speaking of easier teams, the team we have coming up isn't necessarily a the most difficult fixture. We have a Palace coming up next, right?
Yeah. They they're sitting at 44 points. They don't have too much to play for but pride, but same here, really. I mean, we we don't
Yeah,
really know if there's anything in it for Arsenal at this point. So, I think it's um, going to be a pretty sad sad game tomorrow. But I'll watch it. I want to soak up the last bit of this season.
yeah. Maybe the best bits of the season, but yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. It's Roy Hodgson, their manager, has just announced that he's retiring, so there might be some of that like feels involved. There's talk that John Terry is going to be the one that's replacing him, which I find funny, but
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So then, as I said, they might be getting one last win for the Gipper or
Right.
whatever. But yeah, I think there's not going to. As I said, we're going to talk a little bit about placing and what it means for Arsenal's future in Europe. But yeah, I mean, we're not mathematically eliminated from Europa League,
Yeah.
technically. Uh, so there's still little things to play for. But yeah, it's again, there is something nice about just being able to sit and enjoy the game as a game of
Hmm.
soccer. You know, because I mean, I watch a lot of soccer, and there's a lot of times I'm watching games just purely because I like to see teams play. You know, so there's going to be that, and sometimes with the pressure off, you get to there's less of that, I don't know, stab to the stomach feeling or that extreme nerves, and it's just more like you get to enjoy it.
Yeah. I could. It is nice when the pressure's off, and maybe the team feels that way too. Maybe that's part of this good run that they're in. But um, I don't know. It's sad to think that what could have been had they figured out how to put some more wins together before Christmas. I mean, it's just that November run was such a killer.
Yeah, and even the run after. Like I remember looking through the games this part of the season and being excited other than this Chelsea game, and we just, like the Everton game, there are a couple games even in this last run of form that we dropped that really just changed where we ended up the season. We could, like a couple of these results that happened recently could have been, if we even gotten draws instead of losses, we would be in a much different
Right.
situation.
Yeah, that coulda, woulda, coulda, shoulda sort of at this point. You can't dwell on it too much. I mean, we will definitely recap this season when it's all said and done, but I feel like I'm kind of just latching on to the few rumors that are swirling around about who could be leaving and who could be coming in. And I think that's kind of where my mind is at a little bit, even though nothing is concrete. It's kind of just look ahead and see where this team could go instead of trying to latch on to any small hopes for what's left in this season.
It totally right now it totally has that end of school vibe, like the last like two periods in your class before school's out for summer. Your grades are already in. You've already failed the classes you're going to fail. You already passed the tests
Right.
you're going to pass. So like it's just even the teachers want out. So that's kind of the feeling I'm
Yeah.
getting right now.
Although I think we'll still
I
play a
mean,
pretty. Uh, I think the starting lineup will be pretty strong for the last couple of games because there's there's a possibility of something on the line. So I don't think he's going to throw out the C squad
yeah.
or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think like some of these players we should just get the last juice out of them that we can.
Right.
Might as well.
Give well, yeah, give some of these players who are moving on maybe to a last one last run in the red.
Yeah, and I've been kind of paying attention, but the last round of fixtures will have fans in the
I believe
stands,
that's the
correct?
case. Yeah.
So there might be some. I'm a little nervous about that, only because sometimes Arsenal fans can be a little vocal towards players, and I hope it becomes more of a celebration of being back in the crowd and some appreciation for some of the positive things as opposed to just shitting on
I think
players.
I think
I hope
the
that's
team will get a good reception, but the owners may not.
well, yeah. I don't care about the owners. I hope they get all the bad
Yeah.
receptions they can get, but I hope I mean, like players like David Luiz, who it may be his last game, quite possibly is his last game for Arsenal. Uh, we sit and think about appreciate the good things as opposed to dwell on the bad things that
Right.
happened with him.
Um, I'd like to talk about him, but maybe more in the second half? Question mark.
I don't know if there's a question. Let's throw this out. Let's talk about
Yeah.
David Luiz. Let's go off
Okay.
script. Let's
Yeah,
go
because
crazy.
the word coming out this week is that him and possibly even Willian are looking to exit in this offseason. So the Brazilian contingent is taking a bit of a hit. The the young Brazilians get to move up a, a level once those two get out of the way. Um, yeah, so it's interesting. The Willian thing that was a that was a bust. That was to be expected, and I hope that does come to fruition, and he's able to find a suitor who's willing to pay him, and Arsenal can offload him, even if it is at a discount.
You know what's you know what's going to happen though. He's going to go to another team and he's going to do amazingly. That's just I just have it in my head that that's exactly
The
what's going to
rumors are
happen.
that it's like Inter Miami that's looking at him, so I wouldn't put it past having a great second career in MLS because he's still probably at that level where he can do some damage, especially with the new change of scenery. I
I
bet
could
he
see
could
him.
find himself again.
Yeah. I mean, that I could see worse moves for him. I mean, he'll get paid for it, and yeah. But I mean, yeah, good luck to him. He didn't work out. I try not to be super negative about people and players and things, but he definitely was not like I knew it. Like I was not happy to sign him from the beginning, and he's had maybe one or two flashes of like, oh, he could be a good player at some point, but for the most part, I'd rather have my money invested in not only money but time on the field invested in other players.
I think looking back on it, when he did have those flashes, it was like a reminder of like, oh yeah, he was a good player. But I never thought like even his one goal, it was a good goal, but it was never like, oh yeah, he's got more in the tank. Like this is the turning
Yeah,
point. Like that was never in my mind. Even when he had good moments throughout the season, it it never felt like it was gonna lead to anything.
yeah, it was more the exception than the rule. But the legacy of Luis. Wow, that's a tongue twister. Legacy of Luis. I think it's a little bit more complicated. There was a little bit of an online chat that I sort of waded into about him, where I've always been, I think, higher on Luis than I think the average person
Hmm.
is. I've always liked his passing. I've liked some of his play. I like what he does in the dressing room, and I think he comes with a moniker of Crazy Louise that's always going to do something bad. And I think that yeah, it probably is a little bit tipped on the scale of more than the average player, but I don't think it's crazy. And I think just the last like I don't know 5 months, he's been a very solid and good defensive player with great passing ability. And I think when it comes to it, and I look back on his time, I'm positive with his play at Arsenal.
Yeah, I think I when I look back at it as um, thinking back to how I felt when he was first signed, I was a little nervous. I could see the potential in it because he did have he's been an in demand player for a long time. He's got a good pedigree. He has had good runs, and I think we all knew what he was capable of, both positive and negative. And we saw that. I mean, he he had high highs and low lows and everything in between. But I think um, when we signed him, we knew pretty much that we were not going to be selling him on for big bucks. It was kind of like, the Koscielny situation left us scrambling to find a leader in our back line. And uh, I think he filled that role nicely. At times he had his moments of madness, and that was um, he was professional about it. It's like he would own up to his mistakes. He would do his time and get back in, and it never seemed to affect him in the long run, which is really, I think, important to the team as an example of how you're supposed to deal with those sorts of pressures and situations. Like that was he was a professional example to the younger players and how you deal with your mistakes. And um, it's hard to say, but what his actual influence was in the younger players and the teammates around him. But based on Arteta and what he has said about him, it sounded like there was nothing but positive vibes coming from Luiz at all times. And I think that that sort of locker room influence and that sort of leadership will certainly be missed. I don't know where you go and get that off the shelf. That's not something that's easy to come by, and it's something this team certainly needs because we always talk about how Aubameyang is not the type of captain necessarily who's very vocal or um, his leading by example is a bit different, um, in that he has uh, a set of skills and he performs well on the field, but outside of that, it's hard to gauge what kind of captain he is. I mean, he's not. He doesn't seem like the vocal type, and I think in Luiz and even Xhaka, we have those type of players, those captains without the armband, and so losing one of them, and there's been rumors of Xhaka being possibly in the list of people who could go if the right offer came in. I don't know how much um, truth there is in that because we're so reliant on him. I would imagine we'd have to go out and have one or two other options come in before letting him go. I think he's got a couple years left on his deal. So, but I mean, we it's even though we have a few players who are established and have been around a while and have respect in the locker room, I just don't think you have uh, the same voice that Luis had and the same respect that he had. And it's it's going to be a big hole to fill in, and that's a weird thing to say. I didn't really expect that when we signed him that he would be so integral. Um, but even his product on the field, I think, is going to be a challenge to replicate. Our passing out of the back is definitely not as good when he's not playing. So uh, I don't know if Arsenal will feel the need to go out and try to find an established player to fill that role. I wouldn't be surprised if they did go out and get some veteran type player who's got a good pedigree to try to slot in and be that sort of player on this team. Um, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't want them to go out and get a that sort of player just to do it. I think it's got to be the right fit, and I hope that they, in his absence, some of the younger guys, like a Rob Holding type or somebody who's kind of been around a little bit longer, will step in and fill that hole. I think it's a good thing for other players to try to fill that void. Even Saliba coming in, now there's a void in that back line. Now he can come in and be that player and maybe establish his personality in that group.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Saliba, and I just think the flip side of it, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of a hole, but he also leaves at a point. I think the back line is better now than when we kind of got him. I think that there's a lot more options. I think Holdings come in and I felt really solid. I think Gabriel, I'm still high on Gabriel. I
Mm-hmm.
think he's a good defensive player. Uh, I I actually am trying to remember. We still have Marie for a little bit too, right?
Yeah.
We just re-signed him. And as much as I was making fun of him earlier, I don't think he's like the world's worst defender by any means. And I'm excited about Saliba. I'm hopeful about Saliba. So there's a lot of options that we still have on that back line. So it we he leaves and we're not in chaos in the back line, which is I think a promising thing. So
Yeah, it's interesting. We've going back to Koscielny and Mertesacker, and we've had strong uh, characters in the defensive group, and it feels like it's a bit in transition right now. Like when you look at who we have available, it's a pretty young group. I mean, I can understand looking into the future why they went and get extended holding, because at this moment he is that established player, who can provide leadership in that back line, and I think he's very capable of that. I don't know if he's our best defender as far as I think Marie might be better. I think Gabriel certainly is. I think there's it's good possibility Saliba will be once he comes in and gets used to the Premier League. Um, but I still think there's a place for Holding just to be that stalwart of Arsenal and somebody who's been around and knows what we're about and can be a vocal leader in that back line. So I can understand why he was extended, and um, hopefully you've got Tierney, who is certainly captain material. He can help fill some of that void as well. Um, it's it I think there was something that Emery did when he had his group of captains, and everybody kind of laughed at that and was like, this is ridiculous, just pick a captain. But I think having a group of people who are willing to take the responsibility and shoulder the team when things start going wrong or players need to be picked up, it does not hurt to have more than one person feel that responsibility, feel um, that level of ownership of the team, so that when things do start going bad, they know, okay, it's up to me to step in and do something about this. It's not some other guy. It's not one guy that's wearing an armband. It's me, and I need to do that. And if you have several people who feel like that, I do think that um, there's some merit in that philosophy. It's something I find a way to work the Sounders in every week now. It's probably because they're playing, but I think it's something that Brian Schmetzer has instilled in the Sounders, and that ownership of the team is important. Like it's up to you at the end of the day. I think Arteta kind of gets that, and you know he's still working on his philosophy, but I think like if you can instill ownership and responsibility for what happens on the field in the players, then it really works a lot better than trying to put all this pressure on one person to lead the team.
I mean, especially when that one player is Aubameyang, which having seen him as captaincy going forward, Aubameyang has many talents, but I don't think ownership on the field is one of his many talents. I don't think he's the player that's yelling at other players or getting people up for the game or things like that.
If we went into next season and Arteta went to Aubameyang and said, I'm gonna pick a different captain this year, I wouldn't be surprised if he was like, okay, there you go, here's the armband,
Yeah.
like that's fine with me, um, because I do think that there could be other players who could fill that role better, and it might be time for that uh, to get passed along and let the next group
Hmm.
take over, whoever that may be.
Yeah.
Who knows? Did you have anything else you
Uh,
wanted to say about Louise moving on, or anybody else?
no, no, just good luck to Louise. Uh, I guess good luck to William.
Yeah, fingers
I
crossed.
don't wish ill on very few. Or I wish ill on very few people, and William is definitely not one of them. I just if he goes to another team that plays in the Premier League, I'll probably have different things to say. But
Yeah,
for the
I don't
most
see
part,
that happening. I think they put him in the shop window this season, and that is definitely not Premier League level. I think his legs have left him a bit, but what he does have left in the tank would fit perfectly in the pace of MLS. I think
Yeah, it would be
as long as
interesting.
one of those teams could afford him. That I think one of the problems with Inter Miami, assuming he goes this off season, they have three. They had too many designated players going into this season,
That's right. I
and I
totally
think
forgot
they
that.
had to get. I don't know what they ended up doing to fix that.
They reassigned one of the guys to their USL
Okay,
team.
and so they're still stacked at DPS. So they would have to figure out another move for one of their other
Maybe they
guys.
could do like it's like allocated. They could do some of the they can do some wizardry.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean MLS rules are squishy anyways, and if Beckham wants to change something, I think Beckham can change
sure.
things. I mean, there's literally the reason you have a second DP in MLS is because Beckham wanted to come to the
Right.
MLS, so they call it the Beckham rule. So I imagine if Beckham wants to change things, he can make
Would
things
not be
change.
surprised. And yeah, they've got some creative minds over there to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that seems like a good place to take a break. And when we come back, we'll hit more of your questions and talk about some of the other rumors swirling around Arsenal and some other options for how our season could possibly end. We'll talk a bit more about what those are in just a minute. So stick with us after. We'll be back after this break. All right. Welcome back from the break. We've got questions to hit you up with. So, starting with one from the Cascadia Gooners Facebook group. Uh, Not sure I want to be the trial balloon test dummy for this new third tier Euro trash competition. It's really UCL or Europa League in my book. This new thing makes the Carabao Cup feel like a major trophy, and if we get in, it better be all the kids all the time. So, Tim, it's not really worded as a question, but it gives us a great segue into talking about what uh, Arsenal could be in for if everything fell our way, because it's kind of weird.
Well, I it is kind of weird. I totally forgot that there was another European
Mhm.
competition that was starting next year. I remember it being announced very early on, but that was in those nice days when I thought that wasn't a possibility for us. That
Right. That was never going to be
I
us.
was thinking Champions League. Yeah, exactly. So I didn't. I paid attention to it more from my Swedish team's point of view, which is really what the competition was designed
Hmm.
for, than than Arsenal. And so if you're forgot about it or just actually this may be your first time hearing about it, there's a third competition coming out called the Europa Conference League, and it really has kind of two purposes with it. The first purpose is to really give teams in countries like Sweden, Norway, some of these lower teams meaningful European competition, because even the Europa League is a step too high for a lot of these. I mean, we see this in the group stage all the time. Even in our
Hmm.
group stage, we're playing Molde, some of these teams that just can't compete really, and it just is meaningless for them. So to give them meaningful competition, plus it's a way to balloon out some of these bigger teams that drop out of the Europa League, to kind of how in the Champions League, if you get dropped out of the group stage, you go down to the Europa League, and now teams that drop out of the Europa League balloon down to this competition. So that's the main drive to it. To qualify, England only has one natural position to qualify for this league, and nominally it would be the seventh or sixth tier, sixth space is what it would nominally be. But with the it's a little bit confusing, and if you go down the deep dive of the rules and who enters when, it gets so confusing that even experts that I've heard talk about are
Hmm.
confused by it. So some people may be more knowledgeable than I about this, but the big things is that if Chelsea wins the Champions League and doesn't qualify for the Champions League through its league position, then England's they as a champions of the Champions League, they still get their Champions League spot. That was like the Liverpool rule. We all remember when Liverpool won the Champions League but did not qualify for Champions League, and there's a big kerfuffle, and so they finally added this. But England still only gets 4 slots, no matter what. You don't get that extra fifth slot, so then it means the slot gets taken away, which means that the fourth team position team would then drop to Europa League, and then the team that was in the Europa League slot would normally go to the Conference League, from what I understand.
Okay.
So it could be fifth tier or the fifth position that gets it. And again, I could be extremely wrong on this. This is just my reading of the rules, and as far as I understand it, from my research I've done. The other side of it is that if Leicester is not in the top 4 or in the top 5, if somehow Leicester drops down below, they still get a European spot for winning the FA Cup, which is the way we were in the European, we were in the UEFA Cup this year. It's through winning the FA Cup, which would shuffle around positions even more. So yeah, so it's basically there's a outside chance that we qualify for this competition that's not really meant for us anyways.
If yeah, and that's only if we can really move up like 3 spots. Because right now Arsenal's sitting 10th, so there's a
Exactly.
bit of work to do, uh, and most of that work has to be done by Tottenham, West Ham, Leeds, and Everton, and that's
Yeah.
it's a lot of teams that have to fail downward for us to leapfrog. But weirder things have happened. I mean, we've got two games
Yeah,
to make things happen here.
weirder things have happened. It's possibility, and I totally understand the questions thrust, which is that yeah, like ideally I don't think we'd want to go full in. It's not the winner of the competition gets a Europa League spot, so
Ugh,
it's not even
woof.
a huge thing. As I say, it's really not targeted for us. This is a competition targeted for lower leagues and to give meaningful competitions, because that Europa League spot would actually be really big for the third place team in Sweden. Like
Right.
that's a big windfall, and that's a big step up. That being said, I love competitions like this. I actually really do, because I love seeing teams from around Europe and just kind of smaller teams get to play under their own footing, as opposed to always just being the whipping boys in smaller
Right.
competitions. Uh, but yeah, if we do get in, I don't expect to be have a lot put in. It's good practice, and it is European football. It is a stage that if we don't have it, we have less of a stage. And
I
for
assume you'd get some money for it,
yeah,
even
I
though it'd
mean,
probably be chump change.
yeah, it's going to be less than Europa League, but there will
Yeah.
be some money, and there's possibility. There's several bigger teams that are in the same situation Arsenal is, so there is a possibility of getting drawn with some of these higher draw teams. That if fans are allowed back in, you'll get at least gate revenue, and even some of these bigger teams that are in smaller leagues, like you can imagine. I use Sweden because I'm just most familiar, but if you get drawn with a Malmo, you'll get decent money for playing them, and gate receipts and TV revenue. You're less likely if you pulled Doggerforce or something like that. So
I wonder who has the TV rights for this, if it even exists.
yeah, I mean I imagine they're all rolled in, because like Champions League and Europa League are all rolled in, at least internationally, to the same bundle. So
I'm checking. Yeah, it's
I
CBS.
yeah, so I imagine at least here it would be the same. So at least it would be televised, and more games are more fun, and it would be. I think it would be more meaningful competition than like the B squad competitions that we have, or things like that. Players like Martinelli would get more meaningful minutes than just sitting on the bench or playing the last 10 minutes to develop. Uh, but yeah, I wouldn't want to see Aubameyang playing in those games.
No, yeah, this would definitely be a way to develop players, a way to keep guys fresh, but not something you'd want to put your first team into if you didn't have to.
Yeah, and it makes sense. As I said, this competition is really not meant for us. It's a weird thing that I think that they wanted to include England, and they wanted. and I bet they're really like having their eyes on a team like West Ham, which may take it more serious, would have taken it more seriously, or like uh, Burnley a couple years ago, or those teams that in England that do get like sixth position. That's like more their level. It just so
Right.
happens that every once in a while you get a team like us who, for whatever reason, aren't making it into the others competitions and get put into this position.
Well, the way things stand, I mean, in the top half of the table, there's a lot of strong teams in the Premier League. So there's a good chance a strong team is going to end up in this competition, whether it's us or somebody else. It's uh, I don't think that I don't think anybody can throw it away. I don't think you can look that gift horse in the mouth, so to speak, and just and not try. Uh, but I don't think it's going to change anybody's fortunes either.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Europa League, the carrot of the automatic Champions League qualification is a very big carrot that actually is probably more meaningful than any of the money that you make
Hmm.
through the thing. And I see why with the Conference League they only do a Europa League qualification, but like that's a much smaller carrot to chase after.
Yes, I I think if you were looking at next season and it was like, well, do we put our resources into this or actually chase a Champions League spot in the league? I think it's obvious what you have to do, and uh, yeah, I don't think the Europa Conference League is gonna be a stepping stone for anybody really.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that. But as I said, I totally forgot that we still had another competition that we could possibly get into in Europe. And it was literally this morning when I was reading another article that just briefly mentioned that we have a shot at doing that. And I was like, oh, I guess we do.
Yeah, something to keep us semi interested, but I'm not banking on anything. And even if we do get into that conference league, I don't know if I'm going to be that excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for just having a season where we can just concentrate on the Premier League and just
Hmm.
worry about that. There's something, I don't know, nice about that idea.
Yeah. Although, like, if
Streamline.
if the team does decide to go uh, in the direction of bringing in a lot of young players, then it doesn't sound so bad to have another venue for them to develop and get more game time. I think
Yeah,
that
and
can't
this,
hurt.
and I do. I mean, getting back to the question, I do think the competition level will be a little bit more serious than the Carabao Cup for a majority of the games, other than like maybe the final of the Carabao Cup.
Hmm.
That I think a lot of the teams that are competing in it will be sending their A squad to this competition, especially if they're playing Arsenal, because it would be a scalp to have. So I think it would be useful in development in a lot of ways.
Yeah, keeping guys sharp and getting guys minutes is not a bad thing. All right. Do you want to take that next question?
Yes. So Jonathan Monilas and Tim Whittam both kind of asked questions going around rumors. So I'm going to ask verbatim Jonathan's question, but Tim Whittam basically had a very, very similar question, which is it's early and not from credible sources, but Grealish would be unreal, right?
Yeah,
So,
I saw that rumor. I didn't even read it. I couldn't bring myself to click on that one. Um, but yes, sure, I would take him, but uh, it ain't happening. I don't. No way. I just don't think he's the profile of player that we're going after.
yeah, I mean, like, I in general, my rule of rumors is I don't trust it until I see they're actually signed by Arsenal. Like, like
Yeah,
I don't really trust a lot of the hubbub that goes around. But like in a more general sense, as far as rumors and as far as transfers, I think it's going to be an interesting year for transfers because we
mm,
don't have Europe or meaningful Europe at the very least, and I think that's going to be interesting to try and get recruitment because you're going to have a harder time convincing people on the project if we're not in Europe.
yeah. I think that is a challenge. Um, I do think there's ways to do it with shorter term contracts, like give people 2 years as a step with an option for a third or something like that. and look at it and set it up as like this is a stepping stone to the Premier League level. This is a way that you can build up your name and you can help us get to our next level. So I think there are ways to sell the project that Arteta is trying to build and um, give guys who may not get minutes in other teams because there's I think that is the lure of Arsenal right now is that um, the available minutes are going to mean that some young guys that wouldn't see the starting lineup in some of these bigger teams would get to start right away. So I think that is going to be a good selling point in some of these positions that we're looking at, where you're we're going to sign you and you're going to come in and you're going to play every minute. You know, like we need you, and that's going to be alluring to some players. Um, and I think that that was something that Odegaard was interested in was just playing time, and that makes a difference. Um, so I wouldn't be surprised to get a player or two on loan. Like if we could extend Odegaard, I wouldn't be surprised to have him back for another season in the um, on loan. And if not, you know, there's other players that are like that just need minutes and could be really good, but maybe out of our price range otherwise.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Odegaard, and I think of the rumors, that's the one that's I've been seeing getting some real traction. I mean, he came out and said that he's been happy at Arsenal, and it just goes down to Real Madrid. And when you look at the Real Madrid, it's as I've been saying, for whatever reason, their manager, why am I forgetting his name? Bald guy that headbutted
Oh, Zidane.
Zidane. Yes, my description, bald guy that headbutted.
Ball guy headbutt.
But
That's all you got to say.
yeah, but Zidane, just for whatever reason, does not fancy him, and but Madrid is going through a thing where they have to revamp their squad.
Mm-hmm.
You look at their squad; it is full of. If you think Arsenal has old players, Madrid's team is full of very old players that are on their last legs and barely holding them up. And you would think that they would want a player like Odegaard on their team. So it really just depends like who wins that battle between Zidane and their board, because I imagine their board wants to keep him, where Zidane would move him on happily. And I think at this point Odegaard would be happier to move on because I don't think he's very in love with how Madrid has treated him so far. But it's a and then it also is just again going to be dependent on price. So we're going to see how much fan service it was or how much actuality the Cronkies are when they said they were going to invest in the team.
Yeah, I mean, what if you're looking to rebuild this team and you know, let's say on the low end, Real Madrid wants like 50 for him. Is that would you sink that much money into that player considering what else we have to do with the team?
I think I would, in the fact that we and him coming on loan has really shown that we're screaming out for a playmaker,
Mm-hmm.
and we're screaming out specifically for that position. And I think that would fill a lot of holes in that kind of position. I think he has a ton of upside. I don't think you're going to get anyone near his abilities for anywhere near that price, really. And I mean, and you can say, yeah, like Smith Rowe can fill, but I think having watched them play, I think they play different positions and I think they do different things. And so I wouldn't hate that. I don't think it would be the worst if it was a long-term contract. I don't think we'd want a 2-year contract for him. I think we'd want to lock him into a longer-term contract that even if it doesn't work out, we could get a resale value on him.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if it doesn't work out for us, I think he still has value
Yeah.
as a player. Uh, but yeah, I mean, there is a price where it doesn't make sense,
Right.
and I don't know where that price is. But you know, like I think 50 maybe. I mean, it also depends on how much money we have to spend. I
Yeah.
mean, if we're getting like Christmas money, if we're getting like billions and billions to spend, then yeah.
No
But
way.
if that if we if we only have if 50 million is our budget, and that means that he's the only player we sign, obviously it's a horrible decision.
Yeah. Yeah, if the Cronkies don't chip in, which wouldn't shock me, if they chip in very little, if anything, uh, and you in all the money you get is from player sales. Well, that means you have a lot of holes to fill because you've just sold off a bunch of people. So I don't think you could sell off five guys and go buy one. You're probably going to have to sell off five guys and go pick up three, or it's like there's holes in this team that we need to fill. The idea that what is it? They're looking at Ryan Bertrand to backfill the left back position. That's a free transfer. Like that's the kind of stuff that they're going to look to do. And I think it's going to be
Well, I mean,
loans and free transfers for the most part, and then maybe buying one or two players.
I was listening to it's my favorite podcast, the Football Ramble. My favorite podcast outside of this, of course.
I don't know if your own counts.
But yeah, but they were talking about free transfers and specifically about Juventus, and that everyone thought Juventus was like a genius for all the free transfers that they've done.
Mm,
When you look at it, free transfers are not free
right, you still have to
because
pay.
usually you make up for the transfer. Yeah, usually you make up for the transfer fee in a wage, and it ends up being kind of a
Mm,
wash. So yeah, like we have to be there. I mean, there are free transfers and there are free transfers too, you
yeah,
know. And so we just have to be smart of what we do. And I think I'm not convinced that the Arsenal board is necessarily past history has not shown that they're smart in their transfer dealings. So
yeah. I mean, you gotta hope that they look at the Luiz and Williams situations and say, okay, we need to figure out how to transfer people in that we can actually make money off of at the end of their stay. B, you got to look at the William versus Louise thing and say, okay, there's good, um, there's a good type of experience, and then there's just whatever William brought. It's like just because they have played well doesn't necessarily mean that that's a good fit for your team. Um, so I hope that there's some lessons that were learned from those two, and that they don't make those same mistakes, especially contract wise. I think some of those decisions have been driven by agents and those sorts of things, and that's hopefully a pattern that Arsenal has moved past. I haven't heard quite as much about the um, agent led method in the last transfer window. It seemed like they were moving away from that, but you never know. That stuff kind of can come back in unusual ways once those relationships are established. Uh, but I do think like we could definitely do a lot better with the money that we have. I mean, if you've got limited funds, if you've got big holes to fill, it's you just have to be smart. I mean, like don't put a big contract on whoever's going to back up Kieran Tierney. Like clearly they're not a huge important player. We definitely need to fill that position, but it's not worth dumping a big contract onto a 30-year-old player. It's like don't make that mistake again. If you're going to give a decent sized contract, at least make sure that there's some tail end to their career that we could actually make some money on if we need to sell them on. Like that sort of um, method seems necessary when you're trying to rebuild. Like you can't just keep cutting these contracts left and right and be like, well, didn't work out. I guess we're just gonna cut you loose and send you on your way, even though you've got 2 or 3 years left on your contract. Like we just can't keep doing that. Which I wouldn't even be surprised if that's what happens with Willian. Because to go to MLS with 2 years left on your contract, I think you're gonna have to say, okay, we're gonna wash our hands of you so you can actually get your wages off the books here. But yeah, I think there's
yeah, I
some
mean,
lessons to be
as we were
learned.
talking about, yeah, I mean, as we were talking about with the MLS, Miami doesn't have a lot of slots left, and like whoever he goes to, it's gonna not the wages aren't going to be easy to fill. So yeah,
Have you heard of any other rumors that have piqued your interest, or are you even not even going to listen to anything until it's real?
I really don't listen. I don't like I remember when the internet. I've been following Arsenal since before the internet, and if that's some of you younger viewers may not understand what that means, but I remember when the internet first happened, and I read every single rumor that ever happened, and I got so excited about so many players that ended up breaking my heart
Right.
that I really just like I don't get excited about a player until I see them with their jersey in their hand or the scarf in their hand, and it's announced on Arsenal.com. I don't believe it. The only other interesting, I guess, transfer rumor is away is Leno, and it's just an interesting thought experiment, I guess. Interesting, not necessarily in a good way, but it's I've seen it kind of pop up in my feed in multiple places
Yeah,
of Leno leaving us.
he did an interview in Germany that, to me, kind of squashed those rumors. I think has said in the past he'd be willing to go other places someday, and that was pretty much the same thing you said in this interview. Is that he doesn't expect to end his career as an Arsenal player. Like, he's got a lot of time left. He hasn't hit his peak years yet, and so he thinks he likes being in London. He doesn't feel like there's anything bad going on in Arsenal. That it sounded like he was all for staying, but keeping his options open for the future. I don't think that means he wants to get out right now. At least that wasn't the impression I got from that interview. But any time there's like a little gap,
Yeah, I
people
mean,
people
luckily,
will jump on it, and they're like, oh, he wants to get out.
luckily he's under contract till 23, I believe. So we have one more year realistically of not really thinking about it before. If he wants out, we have to think about signing him on. So I'm okay with that. Yeah, I mean, it's not like Harry Kane, who I don't know if you've been reading about what's been going on in Spursy land.
Just that I just know that he wants out and thinks Man City are going to come get him.
I believe the words he uses, he wants to win trophies, which I just made me
Of
chuckle when
course.
I saw those words.
What did he think when he signed on with Spurs? He was just going to turn things around. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way.
um, yeah. So good riddance to him. He'll
Yeah,
end
those
up
are
in
the transfer
Turkey.
rumors I like to read. God, that'd be amazing.
All right. So last question here from Maxwell Boltinghouse. Does the game against Chelsea change anyone's opinion of our position in the league or our potential with this squad?
My That's a really cheeky answer, and it's just no. That's the I think no is a simple answer because it was a weird game. I think we talked about it a little bit that Chelsea definitely didn't have their full focus on this game, and that I think out of context, it's awesome that we beat Chelsea. And I think that, just like last year when we made the run into the FA Cup final and we beat Liverpool and we beat City in that run, it shows that there is potential in this squad. And that's the thing that I maybe can take out of it, that is that there is potential. And I do think that there is, I don't want to say the bones, but maybe the makings of a good squad out of this. Like, this squad isn't useless. It's not West Brom, like it's not like a complete failure of a team. That on our day we can compete and beat the best teams in the league and in the world. I truly do believe that. It's and that maybe is the positivity I can take out of that, or how I can view the team differently, because sometimes we can get fairly negative about it. How about you?
Yeah, I think I enjoyed that game and I saw the potential, but I didn't see like that there was anything in that game that was like, oh, we could build around this. There wasn't like we dominated Chelsea. We got a fluky goal and hung in. So like, was that something we could have built our season around? No, not really. Um, there's still a lot to fix. There's still a lot of pieces that need to be put into place. And I think that there's really a solid core to this team. Um, but I don't look at that game or this team and think, oh, we deserve to be in the top four, top five, or anything like that. I think we played to the level that we're at right now, and that's mid table or top third of the table at best. But it's not. It's never a given. Like these results can go one way or the other very easily. It's a fine margin game, as it gets said quite often. And so the margins did not go in our favor this season, but it's because there was poor runs of form, there was poor decisions made, there's things that were preventable if the right decisions get made. Like you play the right players, you play the right formation, you know these little decisions along the way, we could have maybe picked up a few more points and been in a very different position, but that didn't happen. So you go back to the drawing board and figure out how you can correct those mistakes and go into next season, um, trying to punch above your weight, or you try to get a little bit higher up the pecking order and win a few more of those matches with teams that are above you, and definitely pick up all the points that you can from the teams that are below you, and hope that the chips fall in your favor, because it can go against you just as easy as it can go for you. And if you uh, don't play your cards right, the season can collapse very easily, as we saw from the first half of this season. It's just you cannot make that many mistakes and hope to come out on top at the end of the season. I think that FA Cup run really um, hid the fact that we could have had two seasons in a row that were very similar to like we could be in much worse shape. And so I think we're now having to face the facts that we're not as good as we once were. And that's okay, as long as you make the decisions um, that get you on the right footing to move forward past that. Because I think there was a bit of denial this last season, and now we've hit the bottom, and need to kind of push off and go in the right direction again.
Yeah, and like anyone who really deals with statistics realizes that one-off results are not what you should be basing decisions on ever in life. Uh, and a one-off win against Chelsea in the backdrop of what the season has been is not anything you should be able to make your decisions on. You have to look at, the table doesn't lie. When you're at this part of the season, where you are on the table is about where you performed the season, and we're not that different from where we were last
Mm-hmm.
year, and actually a little bit worse. So you have 2 seasons of data of us going in the wrong direction. So that's a very strong data point, as opposed to a win against Chelsea, which again feels nice. I like beating Chelsea. I have a couple of Chelsea friends. It's nice to I don't have to hang my head when I see them next time, except for they're going to be enjoying their trip to it's not Istanbul. It's they moved it to
Porto, yeah.
Portugal, but they're going to be yeah Porto, but they're going to be enjoying their trip to Portugal, whereas we're going to be enjoying our trip to at home on the couch. And so yeah, it is it is what it is. And you talk about small gains, and I watch a lot of cycling, and it is all about small gains. Like it's small gains create big differences, is the terminology they use. But the thing about small gains is that it's not just luck. It is small gains that go in your favor. And there might be small differences, but all the small differences are going in other teams' favors right now, not in our favor. And that's not just luck. That is definitely certain things. I mean, one of it is money, but other is training and whatever and tactics. So that's something I think we need to get on the other side of next season.
Yeah, I do think having a full off season will definitely help with that as well, because you do get that opportunity to analyze all those little details, all those little decisions that you could have made along the way that would have shifted things in your favor, and figure out how you can go pick up the those few points that would have made a difference. I mean, if you're looking at the table right now, the difference between 10th and 5th is not a huge leap. It's less than 10 points. I mean, we're talking an 8 point difference between us and Liverpool, which is a less than 3 wins. Like that is an achievable goal. You pick up 3 more wins, and all of a sudden you're in that top 5. Pick up 4 more wins, you're in the top 4. Those are things that we can fix, hopefully. And you just can't, if you, all the better if you can figure out how to beat Chelsea consistently, to go toe to toe with Liverpool, to beat Tottenham and not have to think about it. It's like these little things that um we get all nervous and upset when we don't. Going into these games, we get real nervous and then real upset when we don't win them, and that's to be expected because they're big things. But all these other games, the games against the bottom half of the table, we should not have to be feeling nervous. We should not be getting upset. These are games that are very winnable, and these are teams that we shouldn't have to be thinking too hard about. And I think that is something that has to change in the culture and the mentality, and you see it in the way that we line up against these teams and play against these teams. We have to kind of turn that corner and stop playing like we're a mid-table team. Stop thinking we're a mid-table team. Start getting back to this idea that we're at a top tier. We can play at the top tier. We belong in the top tier, and make that decision mentally and in the way that we play, so that when we get to play those top 6 teams, we can start knocking them down, taking points away, and establishing a position at the top of the table early on and keeping it, rather than trying to play catch up for half the season. It just doesn't work. You can't bomb the first half of the season and hope to come back. There's no playoffs at the end of the year to correct your mistakes. It is every game counts all along the way. It is not something that you can fix halfway through the year. It has to be hit the ground running next season and maintain that level throughout the whole year. So there's a lot to fix this off season, but I hope that having a full off season, having an idea of what needs to be done now, and not having these illusions of grandeur, um, will help ground this team and get everybody on the same page for once.
Yeah, and we're gonna have plenty of episodes in this coming summer to talk about the off season. But I think the one thing I'm going to say is next year is definitely a do or die year as far as like what Arsenal is and where we're going in the future.
Yeah, I think we'll know based on the decisions that actually do get made. I think we'll know based on how much the Cronkies are actually involved. I think we'll know on the types of players we start going after. When there's more smoke for some of these rumors, and we can start to gauge what they're trying to do. I think we'll be able to make a better assessment of if we're moving in the right direction or not. But it's too early to tell, and we got to get through the rest of this season first. So don't look too far ahead, I guess.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap things up. We don't have fantasy because it's we're still in the middle of it, and we got a game tomorrow for Arsenal against Crystal Palace. So, we'll have that to talk about next week, and the final game of the season, which we didn't even mention, which is the other game that I'm blanking on. Oh, Brighton, of course. Yes. Brighton coming up on the weekend as well.
Oh, yes. Let's never forget Brighton.
Never. Yeah, so Crystal Palace and Brighton coming up to wrap up the season, and so next week we'll have those games to talk about, and then after that we'll have a better outlook of what the season was and where we can go next. So we'll see how these next two games play out, and it'll be very interesting to see if there's anything for us on decision day, if we can even make any moves. We'll see. Um, with that, let's wrap things up here. Thank you all for listening to the full episode. If you've gotten this far, we appreciate you sticking with us. Review and subscribe to our podcast wherever you pick up your podcasts, whether that be Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Apple, any of those. They all have ways that you can subscribe, and some of them even have ways you can review us. So write a little blurb, leave a star, leave a like, whatever it is that your platform of choice has. Let other people know that you like our podcast. That would help us immensely. Same goes for our YouTube. We do post videos occasionally. We do post our podcast there in audio format. So if that's where you're listening to this, thank you very much. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let other people know how much you like our show in the comments there as well. If you are on Twitter, we are as well. We are at W of N London. You can follow us there and send us your questions there if you have any for next week's episode. And if you would rather send us an email, you can definitely do that. We are westofnorthlondon@gmail.com. And send us whatever you'd like. We'd love to hear from you, whether it be next episode or sometime in the off season. If something pops in your head or you hear a juicy rumor, send it our way. We'd love to hear from you. And the other thing you can do is send us a voicemail. So go to anchor.fm and /west of North London, and there's a button there where you can leave us a voicemail, and we'd love to get you your message on the next episode. That's a lot of fun, and we really enjoy that when people have sent us messages. If you like what you hear from our theme song, go check out Bobcat. Check out that sweet shirt that Tim's wearing. If you're watching the video, you can see Tim's got an awesome Bobcat shirt on today. So you can find stuff like that plus much more at bobc.at. That's Bobcat. That's Bobcat's website. It's not .com. It's .ac or .at. Excuse me. Don't go to .ac. That Bobcat. Who knows what you're gonna get? I have no idea what that is. And I think that is all for this week. That is almost all for this season. So, as always,
see you at the next gun show.